Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Constructive Conversations. I'm your host, Eddie Thompson. Today, I have Rob Jones with me. If you missed the first episode with Rob, I'll introduce him to you again. So Rob is a retired Marine Corps veteran. He served in Afghanistan and Iraq from what years, Rob?
2008 in Iraq, 2010 Afghanistan.
Okay. Rob was a combat engineer, and in July of 2010, suffered a devastating injury with an IED where he lost both legs. Rob is a double above the knee amputee who has overcome quite a bit of adversity to achieve incredible feats in his life. Rob has ran 31 marathons in 31 days. He biked 5,100 miles across country from Maine to California, I believe. Rob is a Paralympian, medaled at the London Games. Rob is also a leadership instructor with Echelon Front. Okay, Echelon Front. We'll talk about Rob's book also. Rob's an author. Rob wrote Put Your Legs On. This is such an awesome book. It's available on Amazon. Is there anywhere else they can get this, Rob?
Just right now on Amazon, or you can contact me. I'll get you a signed copy.
All right. We'll get you all Rob's contact information. We'll also have the links to Amazon to buy the book on our website and on the podcast URL. So Rob wrote this book. It's an incredible read, very inspiring. We talked about this in the first episode. I highly recommend going back and listening to that one. But like I mentioned, Rob is also a leadership instructor with Echelon Front, and Jocko, Willink, and Leif Babin. Okay, they wrote the book Extreme Ownership: How U.S. Navy SEALs Lead and Win. This book has been a game changer for me professionally and personally. So today we're going to talk about Rob's work with Echelon Front and the 12 principles of extreme ownership. Rob, again, welcome to the show. It's great to have you. The more I get to know you, the more I'm impressed with you. You're out in Salt Lake City today. How's it going?
Yeah, it's going great. I love Salt Lake City. I'm really honored to be here. I appreciate the opportunity to come back and talk to you again.
Good deal. Good deal. So Rob is a Virginia native, born and raised, lives in Loudoun County, Virginia Tech Hokie alumnus. And like I said, he's doing the whirlwind tour of leadership instructing and working with Echelon Front. We're going to get into the Extreme Ownership book with Rob. So Rob, how did it come about that you were able to hook up with Jocko and Leif and become an instructor with Echelon Front?
Oh yeah, back when I was planning the month of marathons, it's kind of cool because Jocko was just starting his podcast. He was within his first 100 episodes, so it's just 2017, and I figured it'd be a good opportunity to try and get the word out about what I was doing. And my wife was certified on, certified on Twitter. She had the blue check because she was a Paralympic gold medalist. And I said to her, why don't you text or tweet Jocko that he should have me on the podcast? And she did. And he replied and he said, yeah, I'd love to have him on the podcast. And so I went on the podcast a little bit later. And we talked about what I was doing with the month of marathons and everything. And then Jocko had me on again after I finished. So that's how I got to know Jocko. And I started doing motivational speaking for a while. And eventually another instructor, Jason, invited me out to our battlefield review at Gettysburg, which is an event that we put on every year where we go to a battlefield in America and we talk about the leadership lessons that we can extract and apply to our lives from that battle. So we did one in Gettysburg. And Jason Garner invited me out to it. And the only thing I really had to talk about was, in terms of my professional life, was struggles with getting started in motivational speaking. And eventually Leif came up to me and he said, why don't you come out and check out what we're doing here at Echelon Front? And I said, if you're going to offer me the dream job, then I'm going to say yes. So that's how it started. And essentially they started inviting me to come and observe what they were doing on keynote. So I went out and I watched Leif and Sean do a keynote or do a workshop. Sean and Cody did one, and I just started learning. This is kind of a process in which you just observe for a while, and then eventually they let you brief one of the mindsets that we teach, and then get some feedback, and then you kind of build out your keynote, and you present it to Jocko and Leif, and I presented mine to Steve and Dave, and they made sure that I wasn't that I was good to go, that my keynote was good, and you practice doing some Q&A and that kind of thing. And eventually over time, you do more and more of that keynote, and eventually you're able to teach workshops. So it's kind of an iterative step process to get you from nothing to being able to go out and teach workshops and teach keynotes.
So you do a lot of workshops and keynotes. Do you also appear at the muster events
Mhm.
that Echelon Front hosts? And those all can
Yeah,
be found
Musters
on.
are three times a year, our leadership conference. 1,000 people come to it, and it's a 2-day intensive course that introduces pretty much everything that we teach at Echelon Front, the laws of combat, all the way down to the minute parts of it, like strategic thinking and how to have difficult conversations and all that kind of stuff. It's all in 2 days. You wake up at 4:30 in the morning and do PT together. Every instructor gets up there and delivers a powerful keynote. It really changes people's lives, just like you probably experienced, Eddie.
Mm. And all that can be found on Echelon Front's website,
Yeah.
correct?
Echelonfront.com. You can go on there and find more information, buy tickets, all that kind of stuff. To all the events that we do, I mean, Muster, Battlefield Review, FTX, get information about workshops and that kind of thing.
Hmm. And even online courses, correct?
Yeah,
You
we got
can.
the academy,
Yeah.
so we have an online learning academy that goes through the principles. And we also do virtual keynotes and virtual workshops.
Yeah, good. Because I want to plug all this stuff because I'm such a big believer in it that I want everyone to know where to get access to this.
And there's even
Um,
free stuff on the YouTube. I mean, YouTube podcasts. We have
mhm,
the Lead Win podcast. We have YouTube channel that has tons of great information about leadership, about how to be a better leader. So yeah, and all that's just available free online.
yeah, yeah. So what I did personally is after because I'm not a super fast reader, or I don't take the time to sit and read through. Like I said, I think I got through your book in about 3 days because it just held my interest that much.
Yeah.
But I like to listen to audiobooks. So
Mhm.
I listened to the audiobook of Extreme Ownership, and then I got the book and I read through it, made all my highlights, took all my notes, typed up notes, then used AI and got notes from there, just put them all together. I typed out the 12 principles of extreme ownership
Mhm.
and one summary for each of them,
Mhm.
gave them to my kids. I have a 23, 21, and I have a 12-year-old. I coach middle school girls basketball. I gave that to all of my players and managers and went through different principles throughout the season. Here at work, we have a coaching program. I bought the book for my coachees.
Mhm.
Um, I put on 2 presentations here at our firm to discuss the principles of extreme ownership with them. That's just how firmly I believe in these principles, and I want to make sure that everybody out there that listens to this finds the same access that I did. Goes out, gets this book, gets your book. There's another one, The Need to Lead.
Mhm.
Uh,
And
Dave
the
Burke.
dichotomy of leadership too. So it's extreme
Yeah, the
ownership was
dichotomy.
first, dichotomy of leadership, and then yeah, Dave just wrote the book
Yeah.
Need to Lead.
So there's all kinds of resources out there for people. Um, Digging into extreme ownership. So, can you just tell us real quick how Jocko and Leif came about writing this book and coming up with the principles?
Well, they came to write the book. Well, the principles came from their time in Ramadi. So for anybody that doesn't know about the Battle of Ramadi, it happened in 2006, and essentially that was when Al Qaeda in Iraq was really gaining a strong foothold in Al Anbar province. That was their capital, and Ramadi was the capital of Al Anbar province. So for them, and it was essentially they had such a strong foothold that a lot of people in the military were saying they didn't really think that we could win militarily in Ramadi. But something happened, and that was that the First Armored Division came into the battle and they changed the way that they were doing things. They changed from this classical way that where they were just going out and just snatching up bad guys, and then another you cut the head of the snake off and another one grows up right behind it, and it wasn't working. So what they decided to do was use the clear hold build strategy in Ramadi that had worked in other places in Iraq. And what they did was they went into the city and they started building outposts in the city. And when they did that, they started building relationships with the people that were around those outposts, with the people in Ramadi. Um, and what they started to see was slowly and surely, they started taking over more and more of the city. and they were pushing Al Qaeda out, and those strong relationships formed between U.S. forces and the people that lived in Ramadi, and that is what turned the tide. That is what forced Al Qaeda out, to the point that I think about a year and a half later, after Jocko and Leif got there, they ran a 5K fun run down the middle of this route. I think it was called Route Michigan. Uh, where when Jocko and Leif were there, it was IED strikes every day, ambushes every day, firefights all the time. And then by the time this fun run happened, it was just like you would have done it in Salt Lake City. It was no incidents whatsoever, no problems. And they just did a 5K fun run. And so I say that to exemplify that what they achieved victory there. And so when they got back, Jocko and Leif really sat down and they thought about, well, what was it that made them successful? And Jocko developed this brief that he called the Jocko brief, which was the laws of combat. So he essentially took what he noticed about what made them successful over there, and he distilled all that stuff down into actionable skills of leadership, because he recognized that really what changed was leadership. They had better leadership. They led better. And that's what really won the battle over Mahdi. So he took everything that they learned and he distilled it down into skills leadership that he called the laws of combat. And he took on the role of training West Coast SEALs to get ready to go to war. And he started teaching those leadership skills to them. And he started teaching it all over the SEAL teams. And then when he retired, I think he retired in 2010, if I'm not mistaken. He retired and he was just gonna, do his thing. But then I think a friend of his asked him to come and speak to his company and about leadership. And so Jocko went over and he did the Jocko brief, because he recognized that leadership in the military and leadership in the civilian world it's no different. It's all the same skills. It's all the same principles. So he went and taught it, and then that person loved it. Everybody loved it there, and they wanted them to talk to other companies. And so it just kind of grew from there. And eventually it grew more and more and more that Jocko talked to Leif, because Leif was getting out, and he said, I need some assistance, teaching these principles, because it's really resonating with people. And so Leif came on board and they slowly built the company. But then over time, they would get all sorts of, they would get questions from people, and they figured they should probably codify what they were teaching. And that's what led them to write the book, Extreme Ownership. It's just like codification of what they were teaching when they went out.
Yeah.
That was really like you've experienced, Eddie, changing people's lives, saving people's lives, saving marriages, saving companies, all this stuff that was really resonating with people. They took all the stuff that they were teaching and they codified it into that book.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's more than just fighting the war on terror in Afghanistan or Iraq. It's like you said, saving lives, saving marriages here, coaching a girls' middle school basketball team, leading in work. It just encompasses everything.
Leading
And
your
that's why,
toddler. I used
yeah,
all these principles leading my 6-year-old, leading my 2-year-old. So it's all this. It applies to every aspect of your life. As long as you can figure out how to do it.
yeah. And for you listeners that aren't familiar with Jocko or Leif, or even Rob, it's just like Kurt Signetti. Google them; they're winners. Okay, I mean you'll get all kinds of information about them. But all you got to do is do a quick Google search. It'll give you a good background on all that they accomplished. And correct me if I'm wrong, but Jocko and Leif, they served with the American sniper Chris Kyle, correct?
Yeah, Chris Kyle was their lead sniper. I think he was in Leif's platoon, or maybe not. And I have to brush up on that. But yeah, he was there in Ramadi with them. Chris Kyle was, yeah.
Yeah. So these are the kinds of this is the kind of action they saw, the kinds of people that they served with, the kinds of people
Yeah,
they
I mean,
led.
it was basically the hardest fighting that U.S. forces have seen probably since Vietnam. I mean, don't quote me on that, but it was intense. It was a hellscape for a while.
So let's jump into the 12 principles, and we'll go through, summarize them, get your input on them. But number one, right off the bat, the title of the book, Extreme Ownership. Can you sum up in your words what extreme ownership means to you?
Yeah, what extreme ownership is, in the shortest way possible, is that you as a leader are responsible for every single thing that affects the outcome of the mission in any way. That means you're responsible for figuring out what the problems are. You're responsible for finding solutions to those problems, and you are responsible for facilitating to make sure that those problems get solved and the mission gets accomplished. And what that also means is that you're not going to blame anybody else for anything that happens, and you're not going to make any excuses about the things that happen. So everything about the mission falls on you as the leader. That's what extreme ownership is. And the way that they exemplify that in the book is they have that blue on blue
Hmm.
situation. And afterwards, uh, Jocko's boss came down to figure out what happened, and he was in there, and Jocko was in there and said, "Whose fault is this?" And a bunch of people raised their hand, and he kept saying, "No, it's not your fault. It's not your fault. It's my fault because I was the leader on this. I'm the commander on this mission, and it's my responsibility." And when he did that, I think that's what showed extreme ownership at its most, essentially at its most extreme.
Hmm.
Um, and really, what this is that it's not it what makes this so hard is that it's a natural human tendency to not want to take responsibility, especially for mistakes that you make. And but when you do that, when you blame somebody else and you don't take responsibility, when you don't take ownership of mistakes that you made or problems that are arising, or take responsibility for the mission, then nobody's working on it. And if nobody's working on it, the problems just continue on. The mission doesn't get accomplished. So the only way that you can solve problems and make sure the mission gets accomplished is by taking ownership of it and making sure that you and everybody else on the team is doing the things that need to happen to solve the problems and make the mission successful. And so that's what they saw, and then they started the book with that because that's essentially what everything else is founded upon. If you don't take
Right.
ownership of the mission, then you're not going to do anything else.
Yeah. Yeah. If you're constantly pointing the finger, then it's just, yeah,
You're not going to do anything. Yeah.
not going to
If it's
solve
if it's
anything.
Eddie's fault, then I don't feel responsibility to make any changes or to do anything. And if Eddie thinks it's my fault at the same time, he also feels that same way, that he's expecting me to take action. He's not going to take action. And then meanwhile, what happens to the problem? Nothing. It just
Yeah.
continues forward. So
Yeah. So the next principle, bad teams, there are no bad teams, only bad leaders. This one, I really, really like this one. And they give the example of the Buds SEALs training, with the rafts and everything,
Mhm.
where they have a group of 7 or 8 teams, and you could explain it better, I'm sure. Um, but basically, one team is being led by a good leader, and they're continuously finishing first in these exercises. And then there's a group that's continuously finishing last. And then the SEAL instructors switch leaders between the two. And the
Mhm.
team that was finishing last is suddenly finishing first, and the team that was finishing first is falling behind. And
Mhm.
it just proved the point that a good leader is going to lead a team of lesser individuals to the front. Is it possible for a team to overcome a bad leader?
Yes. So what you'll see in that chapter is that it's not as if the team that was winning with the good leader, it's not as if they all of a sudden they were in last. They were still doing well. I think in the book they even described that sometimes that team even won. They were second, they were third. So it's not as if they immediately dropped all the way down. And the point that they're sharing with that is that everybody on the team is a leader. Sure, that team had a leader that was in charge of the whole team. You have to have that in the military. We have a command structure in the military, but every single person on that team can lead. And only by doing so can you overcome what you would call a bad leader. You have to lead up the chain of command. You have to lead the other people around you. You have to, from your position, do what you can in order to lead. And that is also what makes all the difference. Because, yeah, you can have a person that is the leader and they're a really good leader, but if everybody else on the team isn't leading at all, that team is probably still going to struggle. So we have to make sure that we are empowering everybody on our team to lead. And if we are on the team, we have to make sure that we are taking the responsibility, taking ownership of
Mhm.
leading in the way that we can. And that is how you get a team to perform at its best. So, yes, you can overcome a bad leader. But what you also need to be taking ownership of is helping that bad leader become a better leader and leading up the chain of command in that way.
Yeah. And we'll also get to those other points of leading up the chain of command and decentralized command too.
Hmm.
Um, principle number 3, believe in the mission. And sometimes this is one of the hardest things to do, especially with a team that doesn't have the confidence, um, or doesn't have the same vision that the leader does. So how do you get a team to believe in the mission, or to even believe in themselves if they're lacking those things?
Yeah, if we don't think that what we're doing is possible, then we're not going to be able to do it. For example, like in my book, if I didn't believe that I could ride up Monarch Pass in Colorado in February, then there's no way I would have made it. So it's imperative that everybody believes in the missions. You as the leader have to make sure that you believe in the mission, because if you don't, and then you're trying to galvanize people to work towards the same mission, it's just not going to work out. But you also have to make sure the people on your team believe that it's possible to accomplish the mission too. And in order to do that, you have to show them how it is possible. You just show them this is the pathway, this is how we make it possible. And then also a part of that, you have to help them gain confidence in being able to do the things that they need to be able to do. So you have to support them, you have to train them, you have to show them how to do it sometimes, but everybody has to believe, and that is the leader. It is your responsibility to help them see a pathway forward to being able to accomplish the mission. That is how you help people believe that it's possible. You have to actually show them how it
Mhm.
can be done.
Yeah. To be that leader and to lead. I mean, it's cliche to say lead by example, um,
That's part of it.
but
Yeah.
that's part of it, but it is so much more than just leading by example. But, yeah, if you're a lackluster leader, then that just transcends down to those below you.
Yeah, so, like, if you've got a team and you have to jump across a big gap and nobody thinks you can do it, sometimes it might require you as a leader to go and jump over and make it to the other side and go, "See? It's possible," and then everybody else goes, "Alright, we can do it."
Yeah. So principle number 4, and this can be hard for some people even subconsciously, um, check the ego. Number 4, check the ego. And a lot of times, ego can get in everyone's way. If you think you're right or you're not willing to bend or concede that somebody else might have a better idea, that could be a big obstacle in
Mhm,
everything. Um, in your journeys, you were confident, but you weren't cocky. That was one of the things that stood out.
mhm.
So how is that fine line balanced for everyone in, um, sports, work, just personal life? How do you balance that?
Yeah, what humility is all about is having control of your ego, keeping your ego in check, because the fact of the matter is that everybody on planet Earth has an ego. Everybody has an ego. And the difference between somebody that lets their ego get out of control and somebody that is humble is just the person that's humble has control of their ego. They don't just blindly follow it every time it speaks. But at the same time, an ego, it can be a good thing. It's what gives you confidence. It's what helps you believe that you can do things. That's also part of your ego, and you can use it. But you have to make sure you don't let it get out of control. You have to keep control of it. You have to be able to detach from it and take a step back and evaluate what it's saying. That is having your ego in check. And then we say the number one most important quality of a good leader is that they are humble, because your ego is, while it can be good sometimes, it's the number one thing that gets in the way of everything that we talk about with extreme ownership. That's what prevents you from taking ownership is your ego. What prevents you from building all this stuff that we talk about is your ego is what gets in the way. And so the number one quality of a good leader is that they're humble.
Yeah, I think, especially here in business, and even I'll keep referring to my girls' basketball team. Um, But if you're not listening, if you just shut somebody down who has an opinion or has a suggestion because your ego won't allow you to hear somebody else's thoughts or that they may have a better solution than what you have, it just leads to dissension. It leads to poor morale.
Hmm.
So be checking your ego, being humble, and letting them know that they're going to stop coming to you with stuff.
Hmm.
If all you do is shut them down because your ego won't let you hear them, then they're just going to stop coming to you. They're going to be
Yeah, I
quiet
mean,
employees, quiet teammates, etc.
if you're a player, a really good player on a basketball team, or you're a really good basketball team and you're winning and you're winning and you're winning, and you let your ego get out of control and you stop practicing because you think you're so good, and you stop listening to the coach because you think you're so good, eventually that's going to turn bad on you. You're going to lose because you're going to get cocky. You're not going to practice. And another team that continues to practice and is humble and recognizes that they're not perfect and they can improve, they're going to come in and they're going to beat you. So it's about keeping your ego in check, recognizing that you can be confident with it, but keeping it in check to do the things that you need to do to continuously improve, listen to other people, constantly evaluate yourself, and put the team before yourself.
Yeah, staying humble and hungry,
Yeah.
and we'll see how all of these. You said that check the ego intertwines with every other principle, but a lot of these are locked together.
Oh, yeah.
Um, and we'll talk
They're
about
all
that
deeply
too.
interconnected.
Mhm. So you mentioned earlier the 4 laws of combat, which are principles 5 through 8. The first one, first law of combat of the 4 laws is principle number 5, cover and move. And quite simply, this is teamwork. So
Mhm.
can you better explain some strategies that you employ in workshops and training to get teams to work together?
Essentially, what teamwork requires is that everybody on the team prioritizes the team and prioritizes the other people on the team before themselves. And when you do that, then that you support the team. That's what teamwork is. So you supporting the team. Everybody on the team supporting the team at all times. That's what teamwork is. The problem is that that's not a natural human thing to do. Our natural human instinct is to prioritize ourselves. Or when you're on a big team, prioritize your small team. So if you're on a basketball team, for example, the offense is going to want to prioritize the offense over the defense. Or I guess you don't really have two different teams. We kind of play off both. Let's say it's a football team where you have offense and defense. So the offense is going to prioritize the offense and the defense is going to want to prioritize the defense. Or the receivers are going to prioritize themselves over the offensive line or whatever it is. And when you start doing that, when you start prioritizing yourself or your small team, you form these things that we call silos. You're not listening to each other. You're not collaborating with each other. And eventually, when people on the same team aren't collaborating, aren't supporting each other, that just causes failure. That's how you lose because the receivers are just focused on themselves. But if the O line on a football team uh, isn't 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 good enough, then the receiver is never going to get the ball because the quarterback's going to get sacked every single time. So if the O line needs support from the receivers in some way, they need to make sure that they're supporting each other and they're prioritizing themselves. And the way that you defeat those silos is by having good relationships, strong relationships with the other people on your team. Because when you have a good relationship with somebody, that is what makes you care about them more than yourself. That's what makes you prioritize them over yourself. And that's the necessity in order for teamwork to occur is that you have to prioritize other people on the team. And so the way that you turn somebody from just a random person that you don't know into somebody that you want to prioritize over yourself is by having a strong relationship with them. And
Yeah.
so that's why the fundamental thing you have to do with cover move with teamwork is to have a good, strong relationship with everybody on your team.
And I'll break it down not just in a sports analogy, but even in our firm,
Mhm.
we're 13 offices spread across Virginia Beach to here in Charleston, West Virginia, down to Kingsport, over to Lynchburg and Roanoke areas, Harrisonburg. We're spread out. We're 13 offices. We are multiple niches, multiple service lines, but we all have to work together as a team, and we can't have those silos, like you say. One
Mhm.
office can't be a silo, one niche can't be a silo, one service line can't be one. We all have to work together for the same goal, or it's just going to be, you know, disjointed and things won't run smoothly. And thankfully, we have the leadership in place throughout the firm that creates good teamwork. And that's a business analogy outside of the sports that we've been using. But
Yeah, if you've got a
yeah.
region that's struggling or needs help from another region, and the other region is just thinking about themselves because they want to be the best region at the company, and they're not supporting this other one
Mhm.
that needs their help, or they're not sharing the best practices or sharing mistakes, and they're letting that other team just figure it out on their own or make the same mistakes that they already made like last year, then that other region over here is going to struggle or maybe even fail, and that's going to cause problems for everybody else at the company.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
but that's what our tendency is to do is to prioritize ourselves. And so we have to be able to think outwardly, put your ego in check and think outwardly about what team are we on? We're all the part of the same team.
Yeah.
So that's the fundamental principle there.
Yeah. So principle number 6, simple. And um, I like this because I don't like to overcomplicate things, and I'm a simple person. But it just quite simply, it means to deliver a plan, a message as simply as possible so everyone understands it. But what's the balance in making plans simple enough but not too remedial for the highest denominator on the team to be bored with it? I mean, you want to cover all ranges of your team, but how do you make a plan simple but not too simple?
Yeah, so the natural tendency with simple is that human beings like to overcomplicate things. We like to be certain, and so when we seek certainty, that causes us to account for every single detail. But then we have to communicate our plan. We have to communicate what we've just come up with in our minds to other people. And unfortunately, it's not like it's just a direct translation from mind to mind. It goes into somebody else's mind and they interpret it. And the more complexity that you have in a plan or in the way that you communicate, the more confusion it causes in another person. So yeah, you have to be simple, clear, and concise. And so that's what you have to do. Think about those three things when you're coming up with your plan. So simple means just containing only the necessary information. So there is a threshold of necessary information that a person has to have in order to be able to accomplish the mission. And you have to make sure that you're providing that and pretty much only that. Because anything more, and there's going to be a greater likelihood it's going to cause confusion. Anything below that threshold, and they're not going to have enough. So you have to make sure you're providing them the necessary information that they have and only the necessary information. That's what simple, clear, and concise means. Clear, you have to present the information in an understandable way, in language that they understand, in terminology that they understand. You have to make sure that it's actually understandable for that person. It's communicating in a way that they understand. And concise, you're eliminating unnecessary elements. So if that's a plan, unnecessary steps. If that's communication, unnecessary words that you don't have to be saying. So when you're trying to simplify something, that's what you're trying to do. Just make it simple, clear, and concise. So any kind of plan that you come up with or any kind of communication that you're about to send or say, you want to take the time to filter it through those three things before implementing the plan or before sharing the communication. Because if the team doesn't understand, they literally cannot do their jobs. If they don't understand what they're supposed to do, they can't do what they're supposed to do.
Mhm. And with that, I wanna skip 7 and 8 and jump to number 9,
Okay.
plan, for proper planning being essential to executing your mission successfully. Because I think they kinda go hand in hand, what you're talking about, planning and then making it simple. Um, so, you talked about making it, uh, uh, clear and concise and simple, but what's the first step towards, creating a plan based on it being simple?
Yeah, the first step that you have to have is, what is the end state that you're trying to achieve? What is the end state that you're trying to achieve? Where do you want to be? What do you want the the world to look like when you accomplish the mission? That what are we trying to achieve with our mission? And then you just come up with the necessary steps to get there. And that's pretty much that's basically it. Everything else is kind of just in the details. So you have to come up with a plan that is simple, clear, and concise, and you have to help everybody understand what the plan is. And if you can, if you come up with the end state and you let your team come up with the plan, because that is one of the best ways that you can make sure that they understand the plan is to let them come up
Mhm,
with the plan. But yeah, to put it simply, just the end state that we're trying to achieve and the steps that are required to get there. That are required to get there. Not just every single step that you could have along the way, only the required steps.
yeah, excellent. So, jumping back now, we covered principle 6 and then jumped to number 9, planning. So number 7 is prioritize and execute. And in my profession, public accounting, I will juggle 20 different projects during tax season, during this time of year,
Hmm.
and it's easy to get bogged down with everything hitting me at once. So I have to find a way to multitask, and I have to find a way to figure out what's the highest priority, what I need to get done first, and how I prioritize those, what I need to do to get those off my list and move on to the next thing. But what are the pitfalls of waiting too long to prioritize, or what are some better ways to execute prioritizing and then finally executing your plan?
Yeah, well, the pitfalls of not prioritizing execute is going to be working on the wrong priority, or you're going to be working on too many priorities at the same time. And if you're splitting up your resources between too many different priorities simultaneously, nothing gets accomplished. You won't finish any of them because they're all taking a little bit of your resources. So what you have to be able to do is focus on one priority at a time, and you have to take the time to figure out what is the top priority that I need to be working on, the top priority for the whole team. What is the top priority for the whole team? And what that involves is being able to detach, take a step back for a moment from your emotions that are causing all these priorities are piling up on top of you, being able to detach from all that emotion, take a step back and look around and evaluate all the different stuff. So we have five or six different things that we need to do at the same time that all feel like they're the top priority. But then you take a step back and you evaluate all of them logically. You take a look at them and you say, all right, what is the actual top priority that I need to be working on right now? And when you look at it like that, you can see, okay, this is what I need to do right now. So you focus on that. And then you take a step back and then you focus on the next one. So that's what you have to be able to do. Relax, look around, make a call. That's what we say. Um, and there's certain stuff that you can consider when when you're evaluating what the top priority needs to be, like consequences, how much time do you have, how much resources do you have, that kind of thing. You can be focused on evaluating stuff like that, but the fundamental principle here is that you only want to work on the top priority at the right time, at any given time.
Good deal. So the last law of combat, principle number 8, decentralized command. This has been a game changer for me
Mm.
professionally, because a lot of times it's hard to let go of control or to lose that mindset of micromanaging, and it stunts the people's growth that are beneath you too. So decentralized command basically means leaders should empower others in the team to take responsibility and make decisions and to trust them. How do you know when your subordinates are ready for this, or if they don't have the confidence? How do you force it on them?
Well, you don't want to force it on them. You would want to slowly empower them. You don't, good leadership very, 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 very rarely involves forcing anybody to do anything. So you have to train them. That's what it's about. And really, the way that you do that is by giving them, evaluating what they are capable of taking ownership of, what are they capable of leading on, and then truly giving them, empowering them with taking on tasks or with taking on projects. Saying, this is the end state we're trying to achieve. How do you want to do it? You can go make it happen. But what you have to make sure what you empower them with, what you provide them with, is they have to understand uh, the greater strategic goal that we're trying to achieve. We call that the why. They have to understand why they're doing what they're doing, why this mission that they're on, how does it inform the greater mission that we're all on? And as long as they know that, then you can empower them to come up with what the plan needs to be, what the mission. You can send them out to execute the mission, and they're going to be a lot more successful. But the way that you slowly build that in people is by giving them, little by little, giving them more and more ownership. If you were new to the team, for example, I wouldn't just let you lead on a big project right away. I would give you a small portion of something and see how you did with it. And if you did well, then I would give you more responsibility. I would give you more and more and more. Or if this is a person that typically doesn't like leading, you would do a similar kind of thing. You would give them more and more responsibility to lead. And another thing that we see is when people are struggling with, people that don't want to take ownership, people that don't want to lead, a lot of the time what we recognize is that that's being caused by the boss, the person that's in charge of that person, being the easy button for them and just solving all their problems, giving them all the plans and that kind of thing. So you have to stop doing that. You have to stop doing that because that disempowers the people. So when they come to you with a problem, you may still have to help coach them a little bit, but the way that you do that is by saying, well, what do you want to do? What do you think is the best thing to do? And they'll give you a plan. Then you evaluate whether or not you think it would work. And if it would work, then you let them run with it.
Yeah.
So it's just about taking small iterative steps in terms of giving them more and more responsibility.
Yeah. So I think a good leader doesn't ever force that onto somebody, but they recognize when somebody's ready to take steps in their own leadership development.
Yeah, you continuously
empower them.
empower in small steps. Continuously empower them more and more in small steps.
Deal. All right. So we talked about number 9, plan. Number 10 is a tricky one, leading up and down the chain of command. I say tricky because sometimes it could be hard to tell a subordinate to lead up the chain. Can you describe both of these, leading up and down the chain of command?
Yeah, it's just applying the 4 laws of combat in all directions in the chain of command. One of the things that prevents us from being able to do this is this kind of classic command structure, a command structure kind of mindset, and people that think that the boss is the boss. They tell me what to do. I don't tell them what. Part of this is also a little bit of a formed interpretation of what leadership is. People think that leadership is just somebody telling another person what to do and coming up with all the plans. And that's not what leadership is. And when you recognize that, then you see, it's like we talked about with chapter 2, no bad teams, only bad leaders. You have to be able to lead in all directions in the chain of command. So you just have to figure out how you apply the laws of combat and extreme ownership and all these other things that we talk about. How do you apply that in various different directions? So it's cover and move is about supporting the team. So how can you support your boss? How do you support you and build a relationship with your boss? That's how you gain influence with them. And then, so if you have a boss that is kind of, for lack of a better term, a bad boss or not a very strong boss, you can build a relationship with them and influence them and help them improve. That's what cover and move is. That's supporting the boss. How do I make sure that as a team member, I understand the mission. I have to make sure that I understand what the boss wants me to do, and I have to make sure that I'm communicating clearly with the boss in a simple, clear, concise way.
Yes.
How do I remain detached? I have to make sure that I'm working on the right priorities and confirming that with the boss. And how do I have to make sure that I understand the why and confirm that with the boss. And also, what things can I be taking ownership of? What things can I be seeking to lead on so that I can empower the boss to lead on the things that only they can be doing, the things that the boss needs to be focusing on. And so it's just figuring out how to apply the laws of combat and all the leadership principles to various directions in the chain of command. That's what leading up the chain of command means.
And have 360-degree communication, open ears and open mouths.
Yeah.
Um, yeah. Okay. So number 11, principle number 11, decisiveness amidst uncertainty. And this talks about how to make decisions quickly and effectively. Part of that goes back to being confident,
Mhm,
confident to make the decision. Sometimes we see people too hesitant to make a
mhm.
decision because they're not confident in it, and it just delays projects, programs that we have. So how do you make the quickest decision with the best information available?
Yeah, so it kinda goes back to what we were talking about earlier when we were talking about empowering people. It's the iterative step process that we talked about with that. A lot of the time, what happens with when we feel uncertain is we feel like the decision that we have to make or the action that we have to take is this really big leap. It's a huge decision. I'm either gonna start a business and take out a loan for $500,000 to start the business or nothing. It's like this all or nothing kind of thought process. And yeah, that's scary and that can freeze you up and make you feel like you can't make a decision. So what you do is you just figure out what is a small decision that I can make, what is a small action that I can take that leads me in the direction that I think is the right direction, and then I take that step. I take that very small step and then I reevaluate. Is this still the direction that I want to go in? Does it still seem like that was the right step? Does this still seem like the right direction? And if it does, then I take another step in that direction and then I reevaluate. Does it still seem like the right direction? Yes, I'm going to take another step, and on like that until eventually you've gotten pretty much all the way there. So you don't necessarily just buy a farm for $1 million or whatever, buy 300 acres for $1 million and try and start a farm. What you do is you go figure out where's some land that I can lease. Can I lease a small plot of land and start a little bit of a farm business? And then what's the next step that I can do? Can I buy a small parcel over here or whatever the small steps in between this and having a big farm is going to be. You taking small steps, and that's how you make big decisions, and that's how you don't freeze up feeling like you can't make a big decision.
And we see that a lot with our contractors that are just starting out, in the way they scale their business. They may do start out at $1 million a year contractor. They're scaling up the next year, doing 2 million. They're buying more equipment. Next thing you know, they're up to 6, 7 million the next year, and before you know it, they're a $50 million contractor. But it didn't happen from year one to year two, like you said. It's you go in those steps and you gradually build yourself up, making decisions each year on how you're going to scale to the next year,
Yeah.
to the next
Yeah, another good
decision.
example of this is you don't ask somebody to marry you on your first date. Then you see somebody that that you think is somebody that you would want to spend some time with, and you go spend some time with them. You go on a date, and then you go on another date, and you go on another date. Maybe you spend a weekend together, and then you take all these steps. Maybe you move in together first, and you're doing all these small steps. You're not asking somebody to marry you on a first date, just like going over to them at the bar and just giving them a ring right there. You don't do
Yeah.
that. So you take all these small steps on the way to eventually getting married.
All right. The last principle, and this is very um, this is a very good one because it can affect your life in multiple ways. So number 12, discipline equals freedom. Personal organizational discipline allows for greater freedom to take action by adhering to processes, systems, and routines. Leaders create the foundation for success and flexibility. And you, from reading your book, you have discipline. You have shown discipline, throughout your recovery, throughout your journeys, and I'm sure you did before that. So a lot of us struggle with discipline to stick to a routine, whether it's a fitness routine or just getting stuck in a rut at work or whatever. So can you can you give more information or how somebody can break that rut and start practicing discipline so it equals freedom for them?
Yeah, what discipline means is just doing the thing that you know deep down to the core of your being is the right thing to do. We all know what the right thing to do is when we're faced with two options. The vast majority of the time, we know what the right option to do is when we're faced with an easy thing or a difficult thing. The problem is, just like all this other stuff, our tendency is to not do the hard thing. Our tendency as human beings is to take the easy path. But when you follow the easy path, you don't improve, you don't get better, you don't get stronger, your life doesn't improve. So you have to be able to do the hard thing the vast majority of the time, but you have to be able to do the right thing. What discipline is all about is forcing yourself to do the right thing. And the way that you find discipline for me is recognizing that what I want most in the long term is what I want most is more important than what I want right now in the short term. That is where you get discipline. That's where discipline comes from. And the way that it equals freedom is the more disciplined a life you lead, the more freedom is going to emerge from that way of life. And everybody wants financial freedom, right? So, in order to get financial freedom, you have to have financial discipline. You have to have a budget. You stick to your budget. You're not wasting money on things you don't have to be spending money on. And when you do that, when you save your money, all of a sudden now you have money that you can invest. And you can invest in various things that are going to make a bigger impact in your life and in the life of your family. And all those little freedoms that you gave up, buying a coffee on the way to work, or this thing over here, that thing over here that you don't need, you're going to realize they didn't matter in the end anyway. And all the stuff that you're gaining, like the ability to start your own business or invest in a 401k, buy a house, buy a car, invest in your kids' education, all these different things. Those are the freedoms that are going to improve your life and the lives of the people around you.
So we've gone through all 12 principles and still didn't do them justice. You got to get the book. You got to read the book. You have to read Rob's book. You need to basically just look up Jocko Publishing and buy anything that Jocko has published at through
Yeah.
his publishing company, and it's going to help your life. I guarantee it. Rob, I know we're running short on time. Do you have any parting words about extreme ownership or leadership?
Just that it's the most important thing in every aspect of your life. It's going to improve every aspect of your life once you start taking ownership of it, and once you start learning how to lead and being a better leader. It's going to improve every aspect of your life. We've seen this across the board with every single person that we have talked to, every business that we work with. When people become better leaders, every part of their life improves.
Yeah, those are great words. Great words, great principles, great books. I just have one more question for you, Rob.
Sure.
What's your 10K pace?
My 10K, I don't know what it is right now. Geez, I never really ran a whole lot of 10Ks. I think my fastest ever 10K that I timed was maybe 45 minutes or something. But at my peak, let's see, my best 5K ever was 18 minutes. So I could see, like, back at my peak when I was really training hard for that kind of distance, I could probably see myself doing a 10K, maybe 40 minutes or something.
I have to know what kind of pace I have to work up to, so when I finally make it out there to run with you, I can keep up.
Oh, we'll just go at your pace. I
And
just
I'm not.
run by heart rate. I just train, keep my heart rate in the aerobic zone, because all I'm really trying to do right now is just stay healthy and keep my heart and lungs healthy.
Yeah,
Just gotta hit the miles. So,
there's that
I
discipline.
don't know. I don't know what my 10K pace would be right now, but
Yeah.
I just run for fun at the moment.
Yeah. Well, if I told you my marathon or 10K or 5K uh, times, you could tell I only ran for fun too,
Hey,
because
as
I
long as you're out
definitely
there
did it.
running and getting after it and being healthy, that's what matters most.
Yeah, exactly. Well, Rob, I greatly appreciate you, your work with your book, your work with Echelon Front, and just the friendship of connecting with you. Um, I hope to have you again on here some other time, down the road. And I wish you luck in everything you're doing. Um, Everybody, check out his book, Put Your Legs On. You can get it on Amazon. Extreme Ownership, you can get it on Amazon. You could get it in bookstores. Any contact information you want to pass out if somebody wants to get a hold of you to purchase the book?
Yeah, I would say reach out to me on Instagram. My Instagram's at Rob Jones Journey. We get connected and we can get you a book.
Good deal. Well, there you all have it, folks. This wraps up another episode of Constructive Conversation. Be sure to check this out on our YouTube channel or wherever you get your podcasts. Again, thanks, Rob. Have a great time in Salt Lake City, and I hope to connect with you soon.